Hi there and welcome to Castles and Legends. Today we are in the heart of Cardiff City, visiting Cardiff Castle. This castle has almost 2,000 years of history, so let's explore and discover the history. The castle has seen both heroes and villains reside here, with stories of intrigue, treachery, rebellions and even murder. Over the castle's long history, it has fallen into a ruinous condition more than once. At the site today stand two very different and unique castles, the Norman Keep and the much later Neo-Gothic Palace. Let's start at the beginning, all the way back to the time of the Roman occupation in Britain. The Romans built a fort at the site that is now Cardiff Castle. The position was chosen due to its important strategic significance, as it is where the River Taff meets the Bristol Channel. The Romans occupied the site from around AD 60 until the early 5th century. The Romans built a fort at the site 4 times, and they were all roughly square-shaped. The first 3 forts were built from wood, but the final fort, built in the 4th century, had walls built of stone. Little is known about what happened to the site following this period until the Norman conquest in 1066, when William the Conqueror was crowned King of England. Remains of the Roman stonework were discovered by a much later owner of the castle, Lord Bute. He set about reconstructing the walls, but also added a gallery within them, which found a very different purpose during World War II, when the Roman galleries were used as air raid shelters. Back to the Normans though, who spotted the strategic value of the old Roman fort and set about rebuilding it, whilst also incorporating the ruins into their new Motte and Bailey castle. During this era, there was much hostility between the Norman lords and Welsh princes. In 1093, Welsh Rhys ap Tudor was defeated by Robert Fitzhamon, Norman Lord of Gloucester, and Robert became Lord of Glamorgan. Defence work was carried out on the western side of the site, creating an inner ward, and at the northern part of the area, a 40-foot high motte was constructed, which would have had a wooden keep on top of it. In 1107, Robert died in battle, and the castle passed to his daughter Mabel, who married another Robert, King Henry's illegitimate son. Robert became a very accredited man and is believed to have built the first stone keep with a water-filled moat around the motte. King Henry requested Robert to imprison Robert of Normandy, the king's own brother, in his castle from 1126 until his death in 1134. Robert, that is the castle's current keeper, died in 1137. The castle passed to his son William, then to William's daughter Isabel. The castle briefly fell into royal hands after Isabel married the future King John. John divorced Isabel, but after she married again, she was able to reclaim the castle and leave it to her sister's son, Gilbert de Clare, and so began the era of the de Clare ownership of Cardiff Castle. The castle passed down the de Clare line. Gilbert, 7th Earl of Gloucester, also known as Gilbert the Red, likely because of either his hair colour or maybe a fiery temperament in battle. Anyway, he quickly set to work on strengthening the castle's defences, as it had now become an important power and administrative base for fighting Welsh natives. A central embattled wall was built which linked the keep with the Southgate and Black Tower. On the east side of the wall, permanent lodgings for knights and men-at-arms were built. Gilbert's son inherited the castle in 1295, but on his premature death in 1314, the castle passed to his sister Eleanor. Eleanor married Hugh Despenser, and now we enter the era of what I call the dastardly Despensers. There was a brief period of transition between the de Clares and the Despensers taking over Cardiff Castle. It passed into royal hands. During this time, all Welshmen were removed from office and banished from the castle, further increasing tensions and hatred towards the English. In 1316, Bad weather had destroyed most of the crops in Wales, and famine was rife. Llewellyn Bren, great-grandson of the Welsh hero Ifor Bach, rose in revolt against King Edward II. On learning of this rebellion, Edward sent 2,000 troops to squash the revolt. Llewellyn had no choice but to surrender and requested that he alone should be punished. This impressed many English lords who believed that Llewellyn should be pardoned. Unfortunately for Llewellyn, he was imprisoned at Cardiff Castle, where Hugh Despenser could decide on his punishment. Hugh showed no mercy to Llewellyn. Hugh had great influence over the king and decided to prove this to the lords who had defended Llewellyn by sentencing him without a fair trial and inflicting one of the most horrific executions on him. Llewellyn was hung, drawn and quartered in 1318. The terrible deeds of Hugh Despenser and King Edward II caused the king's own wife, Isabella, to rise up against them with the help of the mighty Marcher Lord, Roger Mortimer, and invade England in 1326. The invasion was successful. King Edward II and Hugh tried to flee, but were soon captured. Hugh's deeds came back to bite him when he was sentenced to the same horrific death that he had delivered to Llewellyn. Hugh was hung, drawn and quartered. Following Hugh's demise, the castle belonged to his widow, Eleanor, until her death in 1337, when it passed to her son, Hugh Despenser II. The castle continued to be passed down the Despenser line until the early 15th century. In 1400, the Welsh Uprising against the English broke out, led by Owain Glendower. Tensions and dislike towards the Despensers were still particularly sensitive from the murder of Llewellyn. This fueled the ferocity at which Owain attacked the castle in 1404. Owain broke through the west gate and set fire to Cardiff Castle and the entire town. Only the monastery was spared, as the monks had apparently given a Christian burial to Llewellyn's body. Owain was later defeated by Prince Henry twice, and shortly afterwards his rebellion ended. The final Despenser was Isabel Despenser, who married Richard Beauchamp, and so Cardiff Castle passed to the Beauchamps. Richard died in 1422, and Isabel went on to marry his cousin, also named Richard. After Owen's defeat, Glamorgan entered a more peaceful phase, and Richard began making plans to build new lodgings with a central octagonal tower along the west curtain wall. He also constructed a new tower alongside the Black Tower, renovated the gatehouse, and improved the castle's defences. Cardiff Castle passed into the Neville family when Anne Beauchamp married Richard Neville, later the Earl of Warwick. Richard was a key figure in the War of the Roses. He was initially a Yorkist, but swapped sides later and became a Lancastrian. He was instrumental in the removal and new placement of two kings, which earned him the nickname Kingmaker. Richard died in 1471 at the Battle of Tewkesbury. The castle passed to Richard's daughter, Anne, who married Richard, Duke of Gloucester, later King Richard III. Richard died at the Battle of Bosworth in 1485, and the new king, King Henry VII, gave the castle to his cousin, Jasper Tudor. The Tudors originated from Wales, and this helped ease the tensions between the English and the Welsh. In 1495, the mortgage status at Cardiff Castle was formally revoked. The castle became less important for defence, and sadly, its condition also began to deteriorate. In 1551, William Herbert, Earl of Pembroke, acquired Cardiff Castle from King Edward VI. William also was given Caerphilly and Castell Coch. William set about renovating the now dilapidated castles in the 1570s. He wished to create a more palatial residence and succeeded in building an Elizabethan extension in the Inner Bailey, a Shire Hall, chapel and gardens in the Outer Bailey, and much repaired the castle keep. The castle, particularly the Black Tower, was used as a prison. However, more troubled times loomed. When the Civil War broke out in 1642, the castle's owner was Philip Herbert. Philip was a parliamentarian. However, Wales was mostly pro-royalist, and the royalists soon captured the castle. Cardiff Castle was then won back by the parliamentarians, but before long a surprise attack from William Seymour put it back in royalist hands. But not for long, as straight away the parliamentarian forces and local troops reclaimed the castle. The castle continued toing and froing between royalist and parliamentarian occupation during the war and was very badly damaged. Following the war, the extent of the damage that the war had inflicted on the castle made it uninhabitable, and it was deserted as a residence after. The castle passed into the Windsor family for a time, until Charlotte Jane Windsor married Lord Mountstuart, 1st Marquess of Bute. The Bute family changed the fortunes of Cardiff Castle and Cardiff City. They brought immense prosperity to Cardiff City from coal exporting, and refurbished and transformed Cardiff Castle into a magnificent Gothic-style castle. Lord Mountstuart, 1st Marquess of Bute, employed the famous landscape artist Capability Brown and his son-in-law Henry Brown, and they began their ambitious alteration project. A large proportion of Cardiff Castle's medieval buildings were destroyed, including the Shire Hall, the Knights' Houses, the stone wall that had separated the inner and outer bailey. The moat was filled in, and the ivy that was growing up the keep was removed. The additions that the Herberts had added to the main lodgings were either demolished or remodelled. 2 new wings were added to the lodgings in a Georgian Gothic style, and the Great Hall was partitioned into an entrance hall, library and dining room. In 1848, Cardiff Castle passed to the 3rd Marquess of Bute. The Lord's financial fortune soared, and in 1868 he enlisted the famous architect William Burgess to transform the castle into his dream neo-Gothic castle. A team of local historians assisted with the project, and no expense was spared on ensuring he had the finest Welsh craftsmen. They began by building a 150-foot clock tower with rooms inside lavishly decorated with carvings, gildings and cartoons illustrating the season's myths and fables. The Bute and Herbert towers were rebuilt, as well as new guest and tank towers. A stunning roof garden was added to the top of the Bute Tower. In 1872, Lord Bute married Hon Gwendolyn Fitzallen Howard, and a special nursery was built for the 4 children that the couple had. The central part of the castle was renovated and contained a 2-storey banqueting hall and a massive library. In front of the castle, a stunning stone-carved animal wall was created. The 3rd Marquess of Bute died in 1900, and the castle passed to his son, the 4th Marquess. Further restoration work continued on the castle walls, reconstructing the Roman wall to Duke Street, and another tower was added, the Barbican Tower. However, the family wealth and investments were drastically diminishing. During World War II, the tunnels at Cardiff Castle were used as air raid shelters, and they could hold up to 1,800 people. The castle escaped with little damage, just 2 lodges were destroyed during the war. In 1947, the 5th Marquess of Bute inherited Cardiff Castle. The family's fortunes had already vastly declined, and the new Marquess faced crippling death duties. He sold the remaining lands that the family owned in Cardiff and gifted Cardiff Castle and surrounding park to the people of Cardiff. Cardiff Castle is a Grade 1 listed building and a scheduled monument. The castle is situated in the busy city centre. The grounds are free to enter, but there is an admission charge for the keep, palace and tunnels. There is a lot to see here and so much history. We really enjoyed our day. Thanks for watching today. Please do hit the like button on our video and subscribe to our channel to join us on our next adventure.